purpose of this meeting is to go over, looking at the community councils and see what changes we need to be made. If you take a look on the first, 6 through 16, on this draft ordinance we have, it sets out why we're doing this. Every 10 years, when the census is done, then we redo the assembly boundaries, we need to take a look again at community councils. Community councils are a wonderful thing we have in this town. We just want to make sure they're updated and they work for everybody, so that's the purpose of this. We got 3 people from the assembly here. Myself, Dick Trainey, we got Neiman Dabrowski from Eagle River, or North Muldoon, and we got Pete. Tim.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Tim. What are you doing,
So
Tim?
disgusting. Anyway,
From West Anchorage.
yeah.
And we all have a background in community councils. So we all care about community councils because that's where we came from. We want to make sure, and we've also got our ombudsman as part of this committee, who came from community councils. Fairview, but we still count him. Still counts.
Oh. Ouch. All from different parts of town.
Yeah. But I think community councils are a wonderful thing to have in the city charter because it says you will have community councils. I know as an assembly member, I always ask, have you talked to the community council on this issue? Does my colleagues. We want to make sure you're still relevant, and if we're not doing something right, we want to make sure it's done correctly to make sure you're relevant to this town. Because sometimes I think some business owners, usually bars, come to community councils in the summertime when they're not meeting. And we've all seen that. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen because we want you guys to input on things affecting you. Amy?
Oh, I completely agree with everything you said. You know, I look at this process, you know, it's being brought forth because of the, every 10 years, you know, but I think it gives us an opportunity to make it fresh, make it up to date, and I'm excited to hear what the community councils are gonna come back after you get a chance to look at this and tell us what you think, where maybe we're missing something or where we need to leave things alone. I'm excited because, you know, I've been part of the process and I respect it very much.
Tim?
Yeah, I'm glad we're going through the process. I was glad that we finally decided to put Midtown in here as a community council, that type of thing. But every once in a while, it's worthwhile to look at things just to see, are they accurate? Are they what's intended? Has anything changed? And so on and so forth. And so it's a good process.
Daryl?
I think the intent of this really is when Dick talked about the charter, and the charter, when it speaks of community councils, it talks about maximum citizen participation. And when Julia and I met, and then we discussed this with the committee chair, that's why you will see some tweaks in here, because we see it as an opportunity to live up to that maximum citizen participation, to ensure that there is that it is maximum participation.
Comments from you guys? What we're going to do today is just give you a copy of this and send you back to your community councils. I want to meet again the 26th. Okay, so I don't expect you to look at this and say, hey, this looks good, this looks bad. And Kathy, you're great for doing it. I want you to take it and tear it apart. And Alan,
I just question the timing of this. Summertime.
we have all kinds of time for this.
Well,
There is no time constraint we're working under, okay?
between
If
now
we
and
get
the
it to assembly in
26th, my
October,
board
if we
is
get
all
to
out of
assembly in
town.
November, we're fine.
Email it.
They don't.
But you guys all have emails with your community council people. And now you've been in community councils forever and a day. I think you were in the community council when I was community council chairman back in the 90s. So, early 90s. But I was here in 2003 when last time we wrote to the community councils. I'm here again. I created the Midtown Community Council. You'll find my name on that one. I care about where community councils are going. So make sure they're relevant. Any questions from anybody as to what we're doing?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Tim.
You're right. It's unfortunate that we're in the middle of the summer because everybody's not meeting every time. But as Dick said, there isn't any time frame. If we need to put this off for a little bit, that's fine.
Can you speak up?
Yeah, there is no time constraint. I think if we need to put this off, we can put it off. It's just a question of, it's housekeeping more than anything else, and to make things more effective. And, I noticed that one thing in here was to make sure we have a process so the community council don't go out of town for 3 months, and we don't have any structure in them that allows a committee of the organization to at least look at things that come up in the summertime too, because they do. So if that's something we can do better at, we'll do better at it. But it is, as Dick says, to make input better. And I know Turnigan for one, and other councils also, does a great job of reviewing things, especially from organizations that want to do something within their area, to look at it and see how it affects and talk about it and set up committees and stuff. So, designed to make things better.
Yes, Darrell.
One of the things I did over the past month is I read through the bylaws for 34 councils. And in the current ordinance,
He's been seeing a doctor since then.
there are certain things that, to be recognized and to maintain recognition, councils must have certain policies in place and certain items in their bylaws. And I found one, maybe 2 councils out of 34 that are compliant with the ordinance. So back in 2005, when Mr. Trainee was chair, the assembly did tweak the ordinance, it was a little housekeeping, just like the intent is here now. And the councils were supposed to submit their bylaws to the assembly for review. Looking at these bylaws, some of them predate 2005. So that's one of those examples where government mandates somebody does something and nobody follows through on it. So that's why the intent here, there's actually a process in this ordinance, so when bylaws are submitted for review by the assembly, somebody will actually do it. So we have 32 councils potentially out of 38 that are out of compliance with the ordinance. And the intent isn't to, say you're out of compliance, do something about it. It's to give them time, especially if there are tweaks to the ordinance, to come into compliance and actually have somebody review them and say they do meet the requirements of the ordinance. And I think as a city, we let them down, the councils in 2005, when nobody reviewed those bylaws.
Yes, Al?
Years ago, during that time that you're talking about, there was a model set of bylaws, developed to fit the ordinance at 2005. And that was kept at the Federation of Councils at that time. And they were instructed to monitor councils if they had any questions. Here is a model set of bylaws. All you do is you plug in this, you plug in that, and here they are. And in fact, I know that's not being done anymore. In fact, it's probably been lost or disposed of. And I know I was amazed that in checking ours here recently, I found out that on the Federation website was the 2005 bylaws, but we had amended ours on the boundary changes in 2008 and submitted them down there. And I don't believe we did submit them to the assembly, and that was an oversight, on our part. But that's an example, is that what's on the website of the Federation is not always accurate.
Well, the charter does not address the Federation. The Federation's a contractor. We could contract as an assembly with any organization. We deal with you guys because you're in the charter. I want to make sure that you run the Federation. It's not the other way around. Because the charter has community councils in there. It does not have the Federation. I appreciate the Federation, but my main concern is the community councils. Hi, Nikki.
Hello, Dick.
So we have Muldoon here. Let's see, Government Hill, or where are you at these days?
I'm still Mountain View.
So Mountain View, okay. She's been around probably longer than any of us with community councils.
Mr. Chair.
And the
Yes,
gal's
sir.
been around just a little bit longer, but not.
The draft ordinance does mandate, say that we will have a set of model bylaws on the Assembly website, so to address that issue, because once again, it
Good.
isn't the Federation's responsibility, it really is the Assembly's responsibility, the city's responsibility.
The Assembly hasn't lived up to, from my perspective, their responsibility with community councils. And the community councils haven't always sent it to us. So we want to take that process and make it work better. So, Daryl? Sorry, go ahead.
Al Millspaw, UACC. But it seemed to me that the FCC, if they worked coherently with everybody, they should be like the middle organization there where stuff feeds through into the assembly and back and forth, and that seemed like it would be a logical way there, because they're supposed to be the head and kind of the, feed in for us. Is that not true, or?
Well, actually, they are the contractor for you guys.
Right.
You guys are the board of directors, theoretically the Federation. But sometimes, some of the community councils feel like they don't get the full service that we pay for. And that's what we want to try and do too, is see if we can just get the process a little tighter. Al's been involved with it for a long time, you know what I'm talking about, Al.
And I agree with you, I'm just saying, but theoretically, it should.
Theoretically,
If
yes.
everybody was doing what they're supposed to do, yeah. And I have a couple of questions. You talk about the redistricting. Can we, anytime, if two councils want to change their boundaries amongst themselves because of proximity, whatever, is that a difficult thing to do? My understanding is just, we agree on it, then we go to the assembly members, we get 3 of them, I think is how it works, and then goes to assembly.
Introduce it, but it takes a vote of the entire assembly to do that. And believe me, that gets very contentious when it's happened before, because even though we think it's smart to move the boundaries, people don't always agree. But Daryl, you've got something in here that this will first be done with us in this part of it, putting this together, and then we send it on to the planning department.
This is separate. This is just because there will be a comprehensive review of assembly, or excuse me, community council, the number of community councils and their boundaries. It's actually in this current ordinance code that every 10 years following the census and final assembly redistricting and the end of any court challenges to that redistricting, there will be a comprehensive review initiated by the assembly or the planning department. So after we started this process, I contacted the planning department, and they will initiate the process later in the year, but because the state still hasn't finalized their redistricting and the assembly may have to redistrict again, it probably will be the end of this year or early next year before that process starts, the review of the boundaries. But so that's the opportunity to, as Mr. Trainee said, to look at the community council ordinance, make any changes now so that it can be done before that review of boundaries.
Because right now, I think it's Scenic Park, the one that Paul Holman's in, that's the, I think it's what but we're talking to them because it's about Baxter moving our boundaries down to Boniface, and if they agree with it and we agree with it, we're thinking about forwarding on. So, but now's the time to do that, right? Actually, it'd be this fall because they don't meet in the summertime. So, and then, or should we wait until further down the road or to present it?
Well, the planning department will actually initiate it, and they will involve the community councils as it was done in 2003. And community councils will give their input to the planning department, saying, I want, like in Fairview, we had 110 people sign a petition over an AC street between 9th and 15th that wanted to become part of South Addition. So that recommendation was made by the planning department. It goes then, the recommendations from the planning department go to planning and zoning. They vote on a final recommendation, and it goes to the assembly, makes the final decision as far as any boundaries. So it's actually a fairly involved process with a lot of opportunity for public input.
Okay, so we should wait then until.
I would
But
wait.
it can be done, the answer is yes, it can be done.
Yeah.
Mr. Steele, sir?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, there isn't any constraint on boundaries being consistent with assembly districts or consistent with precincts or any of that type of thing. It's more functionality. Is this group a cohesive group in terms of issues more more than anything, so.
I understand a lot of it's based on population though, too.
Yeah, well, we're not even trying to balance population, is my understanding. It's mainly, is this a proper cohesive representation?
Does it work for the area?
More than,
Right.
than
And that's,
anything else.
that's our goal too.
But the planning department is, by code, supposed to look at it every 10 years anyway. And so we'll have them look at it now, I suspect, is what Daryl's saying. And we'll see what we come out with. And if there are some suggestions for changes, then you gotta get them in.
And they will notify all the community councils, as they did 10 years ago, that this is being open, and they will solicit their input. I'm sure staffers will be going to the councils. It was a several months process, I believe, the last time.
Is that done through the FCC or that how they?
They communicate through the FCC, they communicate directly with the councils.
Council, like the
There'll be
president
a
of the council.
public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then there'll be a hearing at the Assembly eventually.
So, it's going to be interesting you brought up, because I have one community council that's got probably 6 assembly members. Because the way it's drawn, there's 6 assembly members that go to there. And some only have 2 that go. And our purpose too is to get the assembly more involved in what happens in community councils. Because sometimes you guys have a meeting and you have no assembly members showing up. And that's the one avenue we need to correct. We need to get somebody more involved in their own community councils, the ones they represent. So we get the follow. It's like when you guys do your capital projects list, some of you don't send a copy of that to the assembly members to represent you. And you really need to. We've got to get that system down, because ultimately it comes to us, and I want to know what my community councils want for capital projects. I know the administration wants it, they've sent it to you.
I thought the new website was supposed to resolve that issue.
No, I told my community councils, I want directly, when you've got your capital project list, I want it sent to me. And believe me, as community council president, I would tell you to send it to your assembly members. Because I've seen too often where you guys have a request for a capital project list, and it goes to administration, I don't care who the mayor is, it gets modified by what they want. And I want the assembly to know what you guys want. So,
Do you remember if we gave you ours, UACC?
what?
Do you remember if we gave you
Yes,
ours?
you did.
I thought we did it, we did.
It's on my list.
I have another question too. I'm assuming the community councils are supposed to be apolitical, you know. Politics should not get involved. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you're gonna try to fight for your cause, like whatever it is, you know. But politics should not be part of it. You should all be a community working toward a goal. It's kind of, I guess, is where I want to say it.
Well, you know, on the assembly, we run as nonpartisan.
Right, there you go.
Charter says that.
And
And I expect community council to do that too.
a concern I have is I've seen during community council meeting and also the FCC, like political petitions being passed around, which to me, that seems totally illegal. It shouldn't, is that kosher or what, you know?
I'll have to take a look at
Because
that.
politics-
I don't think it's
I don't know.
illegal,
They're
but
private
it's, but
organizations.
it probably shouldn't be done.
Community councils can't endorse candidates, political candidates, but really by their nature, community councils should distribute information to their residents and business owners and property owners regarding ballot propositions and initiatives and things that, you know, they should educate the voters. You can have candidate forums, as many of them do. They just can't endorse candidates, but it's part of their duty is to educate citizens regarding
I get
issues in
that,
the
yeah.
community. So it's a fine line.
But petitions is endorsing a certain item though. When you have somebody say, hey,
Well,
when you
it's the
sign the
individual
petition,
expressing a
when
particular
you sign the
point of
petition,
view.
you'll be fine, it. Some people feel pressured.
But
you know,
community councils can, even though they're supposed to be nonpartisan, non-political by nature, they can send out an email to their membership saying, as a community council, we have voted to support this ballot initiative or to support this ordinance. They have that right.
I agree with.
To endorse a ballot initiative or support an ordinance if the membership has taken that position. But they can't endorse political candidates.
I'm looking at it from the opposite end, bring a petition into there and say, hey, after we go on and sign stuff, not from the community going and saying, yes, we agree with something. I don't think petition should be brought into it. That's the thought I have.
Well, I think you get into the same issue. I go to the grocery store and I'm accosted by people that have initiatives. So I think.
Yeah, but you're a neutral person.
As long as,
Are you?
the issue would be, does the community council endorse an initiative that is on the face of it political. That's the issue, not whether or not somebody's gathering signatures.
It's a place where people are, it's where residents are that would be interested in the issue. So I think certainly, I guess I would be a little uncomfortable with it being passed around in the meeting or supported
That's
by it, but,
What I'm saying.
But they could be outside the.
but they could be outside
I
where
have no
people
problem with
are.
that, that they
and-
leave, come in.
Yeah, and you can announce that somebody's out with, you know, but let them use their own discretion as to. But you can also say, you know, hey, this would benefit us or would not if it's a capital list or if it's something like that too, so. But campaigning for or endorsing candidates is probably not a good thing.
Yes, Kathy.
Yeah, Daryl, I'm curious, was there any handful of things that popped out when you reviewed all the bylaws for all the councils that we are way off base on?
Well, you know, I don't think anybody's way off base. As a matter of fact, some of the things we have in here were modeled on turning it sticks out as one. When Julie and I had the discussion about the maximum citizen participation, some councils still have a requirement. The majority of councils now, you go in, you sign a membership roster, you're a member, you can vote. But there are some that require that you pay a fee, membership fee, and you have to wait a month before you can vote. And you know, we thought that kind of is counter to the charter's intent of maximum citizen participation. If you qualify to be a member of a council, you show up at a meeting, you sign the register, you should be able to be a member and vote. So having that requirement that you have to wait a month, I mean, that would discourage people. We've actually had complaints to the assembly members and the clerk's office and my office. People show up at a meeting, it's very contentious, there's an issue that people are concerned about, 100 people show up. Somebody says, I've lived in this neighborhood for 20 years, but because I haven't signed the register before, I couldn't vote. And that issue was important to me, so I'm not going back. So it's balancing, and that's why it does say in the ordinance that when it comes to election of officers, it's reasonable that councils can have a requirement that you have attended 1 or 2 meetings, whatever, in the previous 12 months. That is reasonable and fair. But having a requirement that somebody has to join and then wait a month to vote, it seems like it undermines the charter's intent.
Yeah,
And-
and that, you know, that's, so, yeah, Turnigan has been like that, so.
And as far as
We
the-
don't have a requirement.
Most don't require membership dues anymore, some do. And that's essentially a poll tax. If you have to pay before you can vote, it's a poll tax.
Daryl, do you have
Yes,
any
Bob.
idea of they actually doing that? Or is it just in
Fairview
their
Fairview
bylaws?
requires.
They actually do?
Post
They
Bernard
require
does. Post Bernard
membership
does. Oh, yeah.
dues and they require you to wait a month to vote. There are
Yeah,
councils
Bernard
that.
does.
Yeah, I was just curious on the dollar piece, because yeah, that's interesting. Thank you.
So we did put in there that you can charge voluntary dues, but membership and voting privileges can't be predicated. And it's like the age. The issue came up, the code says that if you meet these qualifications, you can be a member. Does that mean a 14-year-old who lives in a council area goes to a council and says, I want to be a member, but the council's bylaws say you have to be 18? Can council bylaws be more restrictive than the code? And we didn't think so. So we suggested in the draft putting 16 years or older, because 16 and 17-year-olds can serve on advisory commissions, so it marries up the age with advisory commissions, and it's a way to hopefully encourage younger people to become involved in government. Because
Right.
currently the code, some bylaws, a lot say 18, there's some that say 16, there's one council that says you have to be 19. So it's,
You know, we have so many people that come to the assembly, kids for an assignment from school, come to the assembly meeting. Why shouldn't they be able to come to community council, participate, get signed up by the community council? We're trying to get these kids involved in the political process at a young age.
Dick, I just participated as a judge in a thing called Project Citizen, where junior high students were analyzing issues. I wish I had a board of executives at times that did that kind of quality analysis. It was just mind-boggling. I mean, some of the detail, and it covered issues from school staffing to good health practices. Amazing. And junior high kids.
You know, if we can get kids at 16 involved in this system so that they're ready to start voting at 18, because they can vote now. It'd be nice if we had them used to the system before we ask them to go in the ballot box and vote. So I know I have a spouse that doesn't like 16. So I'm sure we'll hear more about this.
She wants 12?
No, she wants 18.
Oh,
We've discussed this.
I could be 16 again.
So if I have to find a place to live tonight, you'll know why.
It depends on how many kids and how persuasive you are to get them to vote the way you want.
Yes, Al.
Yeah, you drag your whole family to the,
Yeah, we're all adults now, thank heavens.
You know,
Yes, Al.
I would encourage us to continue moving forward on this because pretty soon, the month of September is here and that starts up, you know, the budget process. And I think it'd be good for everybody to try and have this out of the way before that starts. At least most of this out of the way here.
What I'd really like you guys to do is take this with you tonight, tear it apart, and we'll meet again on the 26th of July at 2 o'clock. Because that's a good time for Amy.
Sorry.
That's all right.
You know, I just have to express again, I think that's not realistic for councils in the summertime. You know, 3 out of my board members are out of town, on vacation, or working on a fishing boat. When you say, well, then just send them an email, it doesn't work that way. I don't want them to, I don't expect them to respond to things that don't have a solid reason for a time limit to be forced on them when we try and take a little bit of time off. Remember, we're all volunteers.
I know.
And if there isn't anything pushing this that's time sensitive, I think out of respect for councils who typically aren't nearly as engaged during the summertime, that this should be put off until fall. I mean, by the 26th, I probably won't have any more feedback than I would today from
Kathy,
my
I know-
board,
I
and
know
certainly
you-
not the
that's
council
not
at
reality
large,
with you.
because we don't meet till September. What'd you say?
That's not reality with you, Kathy. I know the minute you leave here, you'll start working on this.
That's
And
not
that's why
true.
we've got
That
you
is so
here.
not true. The last thing I want to do is deal with this right now.
But that's one person though, and the same with me, for the rest of the crew she's talking about, they can't get their input.
but
Yeah.
let's see how it goes.
Amy?
I don't think we're staying finalize this thing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm
All I
saying-
was gonna say is, I know exactly what you're saying, because in Eagle River, all 5 of our community councils have adjourned for the summer. But I think what, Mr. Trainee is saying is, we want your initial feedback, and then these are still gonna be distributed to all the community councils while they're, during the fall, and they're gonna have the opportunity to get back. But this is the initial look to say, okay, are we way off base in one place or another? And it gives some perspective rather than just our perspective. And then in the fall, when the councils get it, then everybody's gonna get to tear it apart again. So it's like you're getting a preview of the apple, and they're gonna get the real bite of the apple. Is that,
That's correct.
okay?
Better
So that's all
than
I'm
say.
saying. I know what
That's why
you're
she's
saying.
here. She's smart.
Is
Yes,
this
sir.
online so we can get a copy and send it to our different staff members and say, look at it?
Is it online, do we know?
We can,
What do we can make it happen?
Just,
What
yeah,
part?
yeah, yeah.
We'll
I
talk
can- I
to,
can
we'll
send
talk
it-
to Barbara and make it happen.
I'll send it to the Federation too and ask
Okay.
them. Well, I think he did distribute the draft.
I don't know
He
if
just
they're
sent it to
open
the
this month.
presidents.
I emailed the draft to Kathy last night.
Yeah, and Daryl did too, and so, I mean, I've got it to spread around, but I'm just not gonna expect a whole lot of response from my board, I can tell you that.
Yes, I don't know.
So for clarification, the parts that are underlined are the changes in the existing ordinance that are suggested. Okay.
Yeah. One of the things we did in here is, you'll see under 2.40.010, we actually put the language from the charter in there. And under 2.40.020 purposes chapter, we actually put the purposes to implement the charter. That's kind of the intent here, is to really tie this back into the charter a little more neatly.
Well, I mean, it depends if we wanna get down to specifics or not.
No.
Okay.
Not
Then
today,
I
Kathy.
won't.
One thing I do want us to take a look at is the role of the school board with community councils, because I hear a lot of complaints that the school board never shows up to community council meetings. And I wanna see how we can facilitate that, because I know I have enough problems getting the assembly members to go to community councils, but the school board, we need to have them, at least one representative, at your community council meetings. And let us know if you think there's some way to get crap right into here. I think it would help.
And I think the other thing,
Yes, Mr. Steele?
Yeah, they get notice and they sign up for a couple of community councils. The problem with the school board members is that they represent the whole city, and so it gets tough, but, and they usually come out about bond time and stuff like that, but,
Or election time.
you know, so I'm not sure that you can mandate, but encourage is something. So.
One of the things I'm looking forward to out of this process is how we can better help one another, how we can advise community councils to structure resolutions or input to the assembly that's of use to you, of value to you, because so often I see things going out and say we're firm believers in good things, okay? And yet, I think we could do that in this process where you could say, like Al and a number of reflected about bylaws, here's the kind of things we're looking for in a resolution that would help us be your champion, or get back to you and say, you need this piece. So I wouldn't want to see us bypass that part in this process.
Thank you, Bob. Anything else? I'll see you guys in 2 weeks at 2 o'clock. And any other community councils that aren't here, if you get a hold of them, get them here. We'll get it on the web. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, one thing that we may want to do in this whole process is to have a demographic report, given the population
Of each community council?
in each community council. I think the last time we had that was 2001, I think, or so. 2002.
I think we had the planning department do that, generate it, submit
Yeah.
the population, and that's important because a lot of times we'll have something come in front of us that said, company XYZ wanted to put a bar into this community council, and the vote was 3 for it and 2 against it, out of a population of about 40,000 people. So they come to us and they say, well, how relevant are community councils?
Right.
So I think demographics would help.
We get to fairly close in terms
Yeah.
of precincts or
We
assembly
get a
districts
hold
or
of Tony
whatever,
and
because
get
they
it
got to
generated
adjust
up.
it.
Because he's right.
But it's, if you've got an
We can get
irregular restraint order,
Population breakdown.
you know, they've got to allocate, so that's the planning department.
Yeah, I think the last one that was done was, I think, 2003, 2004, and I can't recall who was the city demographer.
School district had a demographer that we kind of shared.
Right.
And I think that demographer's gone now. I think that they've lost, that's one.
I'm not sure the city has one anymore. We'll try and get that done, Al, because you're right, we need it.
But there isn't a huge hurry. We're not gonna try and rush this thing through, so,
That's fine.
you know, have heart.
Unlike some things you've dealt with, there is no push on this. We just want to get steady progress.
That's what it
It's
needs.
just Darrell wants to get it on his desk.
Darrell,
I think he got a little deeper involvement in that.
but
Thank you so much
Darrell
for
was
the
great
good
having
draft.
you involved in this process, because a lot of times, if there's a complaint, he's the one that gets the call.
Well, that was one of the drivers for this, and when I came to the Federation meeting in May, and I brought the memo from Quincy Hansel in the legal department, talking about who has the authority to inquire into complaints and concerns from citizens regarding councils, and the answer was, of course, the assembly, but it's very limited. And that is also one of the things that needs to be addressed in the ordinance, is what's the process? If a community council does a complaint, the assembly finds it's a legitimate complaint, they're put on notice, and the council fails to correct that deficiency, what are the assembly's options? Do they pass an ordinance on recognizing the council?
What's the
What's the
system for doing that?
That's counterproductive.
Well, but what's the process? How do you deal with it? If the assembly has the authority to inquire into legitimate complaints, what is the process?
Worst nightmare for a community council is force them to merge with another one.
Well, that is, there are rumors that some people would like to reduce the number of councils and merge a few others.
But I know I had one community council back when I was chairman of the assembly that would not hold elections, because the chairman president knew they would get voted out. So he refused to have elections, even though they were supposed to have one. So I had to go there and take over the community council and force elections. Theoretically, I didn't have the power to do it, but I did it anyway, because they had gone 3 months without having elections. because they wouldn't hold one.
Oh, that's priceless.
I suspect most councils, though, if they're put on notice by the rules
Fix it,
committee
yeah.
or whatever, they would fix the deficiency.
So we just need to clean it up so we don't have that problem again.
You guys are on the front line, and you just have to go to a few community councils that where there's a contentious issue to realize that it's not an easy task, and I applaud you all for what you do. It's where politics starts.
Yes, Allison.
Or in
Well, I
all-
think, also is that part of the contract requirements with the Federation office is that they also conduct training sessions for the community council officers. And they've been very grossly negligent in doing that for a number of years. I think once you start this process, and if we can ever get that on track, then these things can be taught to a lot of these council officers. These are things, here's what a set of bylaws are, here's what it guides you, all of those type of things. And so I think once they get to that stage, then there could be some tutoring at that aspect to help these councils achieve the level that they would like to be at.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Trainee and Mr. Hall and I, we actually have had that discussion. I came to the Federation, I talked about that. We still plan on doing that this fall. Part of the problem is with it being summer, we didn't want to call a meeting of the group, but we've got Dennis McMillan on board to facilitate, Beth Norland with the Parks Foundation to do a presentation on how to interact with the Assembly and legislators as far as funding requests. Tim Potter's interested, so we have a lot, Dr. Shamard from the university. So we have a lot of people who are interested in putting on a leadership academy, community council officers academy, whatever you want to call it, but for current officers and people who are interested in being officers. And the discussion we had was that if it's successful, maybe we could do it annually.
Right. Because you know, you do have a change of officers.
And NeighborWorks Anchorage actually wants to do a piece as part of that on community building and organizing. So I think it has a lot of potential, I agree with.
So community council are just so darn effective. I've seen Kathy for years fight for her community council. I've seen you, Al, work for your community council. I've seen Bob work for his. Nikki worked for hers. Midtown is up and running, and thank you, because you guys work hard. So does Sand Lake. So I just want to make sure we get all community councils pinging, all working correctly. And that will help the assembly do our job better. So.
Thank you so very much.
Hey, Dick, by the way,
Yes, sir.
my name is Al too, so whenever you say Al,
I'm sorry.
I'm about to speak up and.
I am sorry.
Since this is being
Al
recorded.
with hair and Al with no hair.
I can't talk about hair. Okay.
That's what I do.
What? 2 o'clock on the 26th.
Good.
Same place.